Hey everybody, Zach here for the Friday Fishing Report. This week we got another fly tying tutorial for you. This week it's going to be a tube fly. This is one I tied for steelhead for actually Jason. He did a trip up north earlier in the year and caught some steelhead on this fly. So it's pretty large, it's in charge. Kind of like my grandfather that just passed away, so this one's named after him. I'm calling it the Boss Hogg tube fly. It's a nickname we had for him throughout the years. So yeah, it's a pretty fun one to tie. You can tie it in all your favorite steelhead colors. Should work for salmon, bulltrout, all the usual stuff. I like my versatility. My flies kind of one fly to do it all, sort of thing. So let's head on down and check this one out. Alright, so here it is. Big, huge tube fly here, like I said. I'm naming this one after my grandfather who recently passed away. I had a different name for it for a while there, but decided it was fitting to name this one after him. It's got a lot of characteristics like him. It's large, it's in charge. I call it the Boss Hogg tube. That was a nickname we had for him growing up. Yeah, I know he wasn't a fly fisherman, but he did teach me how to saltwater fish. That was one of the things that I did a little bit here and there growing up with him. Throwing up some photos here so you guys can see these are way back from like the 70s and stuff. A lot of photos have come to light that I've actually never seen before, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, so this one's in his memory. As you can see, there's a lot going on in here. Lots of material. It's actually a really lightweight fly. It has a lot more flash than your average steelhead fly. But I tied up Jason a couple prototypes for earlier in the year, and when he took them up north and did quite well on them. So it was actually first fish of the trip came on this fly. So it does work pretty damn well. Lots of movement, lots of material in there. But like I said, it's very lightweight. It's tied very sparsely, so it's a fun one. It's been a long one. So let's get to it. So this is tied on. Just get this guy off there. This is tied on a Pro Tube Flexi tube. These are kind of cool. So this is the 40/40 tube. It's kind of a cool idea. So basically they've got junction tubing built into the main tubing, which is super cool. All I've done, I've cut down the back a little bit, burnt it with a lighter just around the edges a bit, and I'm going to slide this onto the Flexi needle, obviously named for the Flexi system, and we're going to add a little bit of weight to this. This is a Flexi weight. Shocker. So the cool thing about Pro Tubes, they've got all these different weights and different styles of weights, different sizes of weights. So the Flexi weight is just a typical brass weight that just slides on the tube there, which is kind of cool. This is the medium size. It does come in a small and a large as well. They also have raw weights, which are just tungsten. And what else is there? There's the drop weights as well, which are thicker, shorter, fatter brass weight, which is kind of neat. So all I'm going to do here is take a little bit of super glue. I'm just going to slide it on there. It's just going to help to secure that weight in place. I'm going to slide that guy right on there. Let that sit for a couple seconds. And my thread for this guy is going to be somewhat thick. This is a 140 denier in black. This is the black Flexi tube, obviously. It comes in a variety of colors, so you can change up the colors of your butts and the main parts of the front of your fly. So I'm just going to start by building up a little bit of a thread dam at the front here, and we're going to cover all this up. Now, the beauty thing about the Flexi needle, instead of a regular mandrel for tube flies, is it's square. So these round tubes don't have a tendency to twist. It can happen if you're not too careful. If you don't slide it on there enough, they can twist on you. But you jam that square peg under the round hole, and you're laughing. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue here, just to help her get a good layer of thread going. Now a little bit of brass is just going to help get this fly started. Like I said, the materials that are in this fly, there's a lot of synthetic, so it's not a very heavy fly. So we need something to kind of help it get down. So we're going to start by doing a little butt section of ice dub and fluorescent hot pink. Obviously, this being a steelhead fly, you can use whatever colors you want. And I'm just going to dub this onto my thread here. Create a little dubbing noodle. kind of thin. You can use chenille if you like. I just like the colors of ice dub. As you fish it, they get all kind of wispy and they start to pull away from the fly. They just add another level of movement. So I'm just going to create a nice little dubbing ball at the back here. Like so. Hopefully that's still in focus for you. Just going to wrap thread against that guy there. Really, that little dubbing ball is just going to be a prop for our tail. So the tail on this fly is just some bucktail in orange. And this is going to help kind of keel the fly a little bit, keep it from spinning on you. So deer hair being hollow is going to kind of help to stabilize it a little bit. I'm just going to take a little chunk here. And I'm not going to worry too much about stacking those ends. I think they look pretty good the way they are. I'm going to have that so it extends just past junction tubing there. I'm going to tie that in right on top. Some snug wraps. Get that going right against the butt of the dubbing there. Don't worry too much about it if it's sticking up. Over time it's going to soften and sink on you a bit. And it's just as acting as a keel for the most part. Alright, so that's the tail of our fly. And onto our next portion, which is going to be a little bit of a filler material more than anything, but also to add a bit of flash to it. So this fly is going to do, with the amount of flash, it's going to fish a lot better in the warmer weather, when the fish, steelhead, are more active. Just like when they're eating spoons and stuff like that, don't be afraid to throw this fly. So this is just some polar chenille in silver UV. Another thing I've started doing too is adding more flash to my flies. I was going very sparse with my flash for a while there, and I was listening to an interview with Jerry French, and he was saying that when you go very sparse with flash, it doesn't really do anything. So I've been kind of experimenting with no flash in my flies and then a lot of flash in my flies, and definitely does help, especially in dirty water. These flies are going to really shine for you. We're just going to take a few wraps of this. Again, it's more of a filler, very lightweight material. Comes in a bazillion different colors. That's 4 wraps, I think. We're going to do one more here. There we go. I'm going to lock that in. A couple wraps behind. A couple wraps in front here. I'm just going to wrap back on it a touch to help get those fibers pushing rearwards. Cut that off nice and close. Just lick my fingers there. Get everything flowing backwards. And if you noticed, I tied that in with the material facing down and the cord facing up. That way it allows the fly or the fibers to actually push backwards. If I tie it in the other way, they're going to want to push forwards. Just the nature of the beast with this, and Palmer chenille is another one that does that quite a bit. And we're going to create a little prop for our shoulder now. There's going to be some fox. I'm going to take some more ice dub, same color. Once again, just dub it onto your thread. Get a nice dubbing noodle going. So I like to do my noodles fairly sparse, so I'll do them a little bit longer. So when you do them looser with less material, it allows you to build them up a little bit more. You can always take away. You can't, or you can keep adding too, but this way it kind of just allows me to take away what I don't need. I'm going to wrap back on this guy a bit, create a nice little bump here of dubbing for a fox. I don't worry if my thread's showing too much through there, as it's going to all be hidden for the most part. I'm just going to do a couple wraps forward. I'm going to stick my finger. I'm going to make a dubbing loop. So I'm going to wrap around the shank twice, over the loop twice. Get those fibers here from getting trapped. If I don't go around that thread a couple times there, when I wrap back, see how that's got a nice closed V there? If I don't do that, there's going to be one strand here, one strand over here. Any material you put in there is just going to fall out. So that guy's going to sit like that. Take a couple wraps forward. Like I said, we're going to use some fox for shoulder. This is Arctic fox, which is quite nice stuff. Not much under fur in this. So I'm just going to separate a small chunk here. Trim that away from the hide. Cut it as close to you can, just like you would with bucktail or deer hair. Just allows you to have more fibers to work with. Chuck that out of the way. There's a little bit under fur in here, so just going to pull that, get it out of there. Sometimes I'll take the guard hairs out. In this pattern I kind of like them. You can see they're very wispy, a little bit lighter in color. Just helps to add a little bit more contrast. Now before I put this in the loop, I like to spread it out a bit. So this way, you know you have the right amount of material when you can still see through it. You don't want it to be too dense. So I'm going to throw that in there. I want the main tips of the fox here. Hopefully you guys can see this here. Just keep spinning on me. There we go. But the main tips of the fox to be a little bit shy of the polar snail. The drawing a blank there. The guard hairs, I don't mind if they're a little bit longer. I'm just going to kind of space that out in the loop. Take my dubbing spinner, toss it in there. I give it a couple spins with my finger here just to help kind of close everything up. Then I'm going to trim these butt ends about 1/4 of an inch or so, like so. So kind of like that in loop. Move that a little bit for you guys. Now I'm going to take my fingers, I'm going to pinch that loop shut, give my dubbing spinner a good spin, and I'm going to let that fox go. I'll give it one more spin here, pinch it shut, let it spin. Pull everything tight. See, everything winds up there. What I like to do, I like to take a chunk of Velcro, brush out that fox. This way anything that's trapped in there gets brushed out. Now, I'm just going to wet my fingers a little bit. Having a dish of water handy usually helps. Just going to wet my fingers, pull that material back. I'm going to do touching wraps, one in front of the other. Until I'm done. So, really tight turns, keep them nice and tight, keeps your shoulder up, nice and fuzzy. It's about 3 turns there. Tie that off. A couple wraps in front. And what I like to do here, I like to wrap back on this a little bit. As you can see, there's a couple trap fibers there, so I'm just going to take a brush here. I'm just going to brush all that out. Fibers get trapped when you're wrapping. That's just nature of the beast. Be rough with it. The fish aren't going to be nice to it, so. As you can see there, so we got 3 distinct portions there. Kind of like so. Good looking shoulder if I do say so myself. Just gonna wet your fingers, just help to push everything back a little bit. Alright, now we're gonna get into a bit of the crazy part with some of this flash in this fly. There's a lot of it, so bear with me. You're gonna think it's a little nuts, but we're gonna layer it up here. Alright, so our first flash is going to be some Holographic Flasher in orange, number 6941 for you Flashaboo nerds. Like I said, there's a lot of flash in this fly, so I like to section myself off. A couple chunks here, yeah, maybe a couple more. You can go 6 or 7 strands. Trim that away. I'm going to tie this in right on top, somewhere in the middle. I'm going to take a couple wraps forward just to get it kind of seated. Just make sure it's sitting where I want. I'm going to rub it with my fingertip there, just kind of spread them out a bit. And I'm going to fold this back, take a couple more wraps, and again, just kind of spread it out with my fingertip. Get it kind of spread out over the top of the fly. Kind of like so. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to trim it a little bit longer than the bucktail there. I'm going to kind of stagger cut it. Just kind of go back and forth with my scissors. There we go. We're going to layer a little bit more flash on top of that. So this is going to be some holographic fuchsia, number 6995. Once again, another 5 or 6. There we go. There's a couple strands there. 4. Go with those guys there. Those all want to join the party. Chuck that out of the way. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Tie it in on top. A couple loose wraps there. Kind of spread it out. I'm going to grab the rest of these here. Spread them out over the top of the fly. And wrap back on them. Just to give you kind of an idea, that's kind of what we're looking like here. It's kind of spreading over about 1/3 at the top of the fly. Again, I'm going to come in here, trim these a touch longer. I don't like cutting things all the same length in flies. I find when you stagger cut items, materials, they definitely swim a lot better. So I'm just going to kind of wet my fingers there, kind of get them under control a little bit. And we're going to move into our crystal flash next. So this is kind of a new thing that Hairline came out. These flash stash pods are kind of cool. So they're double deep. I've been tying some warm water flies for Christmas Island, so I got my 2 colors that I use the most in my patterns, and I just pull them out a couple at a time. So I'm going to use some orange. Yeah, we'll go orange on this part. So we've got a lot of pink in this fly as well. I'm going to take 3 strands of orange crystal flash. I'm going to tie them in. I got 4 there. 3 strands. I'm going to tie 3 in on my side. Just get that right on the side. I'm going to splay them out so it's in a kind of a W shape. So take a couple wraps there. It's kind of easier to do this once it's all tied in. And you just kind of manipulate them. You find out one wants to go on the bottom, one wants to go on top, one likes to stay in the middle. That one wants to go on the bottom, that one on top. Perfect. I'm going to trim these all at different lengths, just so they can all move freely. Find these guys here. That one wants to go to the bottom, that one's going to stick in the middle, that one's going to stick on top. Trim them at all different lengths, kind of like so. 2 more wraps to really lock that in place. And we're going to add one more color of flash here. It's going to be some Polar Flash in Pink Pearl, 2004. Again, I'm going to take 5 or 6 strands. Trim away. These are just going to get tied in on the side. So take a couple wraps here. Perfect. Pull it over your side. A few more wraps. And this I'm going to trim, kind of like the rest of them. Same with on my side. There we go. So we got a lot of flash in there. So this thing's going to have a lot of movement. It's going to move a lot for you. Onto our Marabou. So I got 2 colors here. Bottom layer is going to be fluorescent shrimp pink. Top layer going to be fluorescent hot pink. This seems to be a killer one for the up on the Skeena in the summertime. I'm sure it'll work down here in the winter as well. Pink is always a very popular steelhead color. So I'm just going to wet the tip of the feather there. Shrimp pink going on underneath. I'm going to tie that in by the tip. It's going to give a nice transition of colors from orange up to pink. just going to trim off the tip portion. I'm just going to gently take my scissors on the one side, kind of fold that feather back. Marabou can be a little unruly, a little tough to work with, so always find just wetting your fingers, pulling the material back, taking your time is very key. So depending on how full the feather is, you're going to get a couple wraps here. Probably do 3 to 4, I think. We'll do one more. So that's 4 wraps there. Come in, trap that in. Lock it down, as we like to say in the fly tying universe. Carefully cut away the stem. Just blow everything back there. Give a couple of good securing wraps. I always like to leave a little bit of a nub. Allows me to just really trap in that Marabou feather. Lots of movement ready to go on this guy already. Now we're going to tie in our second color, which is that hot pink. Same thing, going to tie it in by the tip. Isolate a good section there. A few good wraps, fold the tip back. That way you're not going to lose anything. Come in there, trim that guy away. One fiber there. Once again, gently run the edge of your scissors on the stem. Kind of wet it. We're going to give it, again, 3 or 4 wraps. How full is all up to you. I don't like it too heavy. 2. I think we're going to go 4 with this one as well. Nature Spirit Marabou is pretty consistent with quality, so I usually get about 3 or 4 wraps. Ooh, what's going on there? I think that just spun on me a bit. Alright, let's try that again, shall we? If something doesn't ever sit right, don't be afraid to go back and do it again. Nothing wrong with that. 2. 2 more in here. Let's wrap 3. 3.5 here. Should be good. Alright. Lock that in place. Trim away the excess. Just kind of wet my fingers. Give that a couple good securing wraps back on itself there. There you go. See, we've kind of hidden some of that flash there, but as this fly swims and moves, you're going to kind of see it shimmering through the body. Once again, just wet my fingers. I'm going to control that Marabou a bit. And we're going to add, you guessed it, another chunk of flash. So this is some lateral scale, great for bait fish patterns and saltwater stuff. That's kind of the shot I want there. You can see all the crinkles. This is number 1703, just a regular pearl. I'm only going to use 1 strand. If I can isolate 1 here, I've got about 4 or 5, that's fine. Trim that off nice and close. I'm going to tie this in right on the side. A couple securing wraps here. Make sure that's sitting properly. Couple wraps forward, fold it over, tie it in along your side, like so. Just make sure that's sitting right. Perfect. Sitting how I want it. I'm going to trim that pretty much the length of the fly. Just going to add a nice lateral accent. And yeah, I think that's it for flash on this guy. Like I said, there's a lot on here. Now we're going to get into some more naturals. Alright, so the next material, natural world, is going to be some Amherst. I like to buy the full tails. You get some really long fibers on here. Like, that's pretty awesome. This stuff seems quite rigid and stiff, but once it's tied in, it actually moves a lot in the water. So it's one of those very unique materials that's tough to replicate. So I'm going to do this kind of hobo space style. I'm going to have it kind of going in a V on top. So I'm going to take 2 chunks of 4. This is white just to break up the pink and the orange, give it a little bit of contrast. Tie that in. A couple loose-ish wraps there. Grab my second chunk here. This stuff likes to stick together. Alright, just gonna measure it up. That's gonna sit right there. Give you kind of a top view there. That's kind of what it's looking like in that V shape. Secure that down. Trim away the butt ends. Now we're going to add in our hackles. So grizzly hackles look really cool on intruders and steelhead flies. The barring on them adds a lot of movement to the fly without actually adding movement. So when this is just dangling there, everything's kind of moving. The barring actually looks like it's giving the fly life. So I'm going to tie these in. I've already pre-selected these. They're about the same. Still, they're tips. These are the packs here. We kind of get them in half capes or half saddles. If we really picked over that one, I'm going to measure it up so they extend just to the back of everything else. Should be roughly about here. I'm just going to trim away all this junk. Don't need it. Tie one in on my side. A couple loose wraps to kind of just seat it. It's not quite sitting how I want, so I'll go back, redo it. Let's try it on your side. One trick I've learned with hackles over the years, if it doesn't sit right on your side, try it on the other side. Usually it seats pretty good. It's just something weird about them and how they work. I'll try this one on my side. Fingers crossed it all works out, which it looks like it does. You can see I've tied them in just on the inside of the Amherst there, again in a V shape. Take a couple wraps here. Then I'm going to wrap back on it, fold the stems back. Can be quite brittle, so you really want to lock them down in place. I'll even take it one step further here and add just a drop of super glue, just to make sure those guys aren't going to pull out. I don't think I got any on there. Let's do that again. There. That's not going anywhere. A couple more wraps just to secure it. Marabou's coming unglued a little bit there. And now we're going to add some barred ostrich. So this is the Mfc Barred Ostrich in fuchsia barred black. You can use Rhea as well. I've done this in a white and pink version that looks pretty deadly as well. And with the white under is the base layer and the pink over top, the white really looks killer. So we're going to do 3 clumps here. I'm going to show you where we tie these in. You can use as much or as little as you like. For this MFC stuff is very fine, so it moves very well in the water, which I like. So I'm literally going to tie in a clump here, a clump in between the Amherst and the hackle, and a clump between the Amherst and the hackle. So that gives you a good baseline of where to go. You can tie them in as long or as short as you like. I'm going to start with that middle section. Just a couple wraps to kind of secure it. Just add a little bit, just to add some contrast. You don't want big solid blocks of color. Really makes, I like the contrast in flies. I'm going to tie in this clump on this side. I'm going to kind of stagger them a little bit so they're slightly different lengths. Gives each fiber the ability to move on its own, kind of do its own thing. 2 wraps there. One more clump on your side. Tie it just a smidge shorter than the top section. 3 wraps kind of secure it all. I'm going to come in here, trim all these butt ends away. Really secure that in place. You can see it's kind of making a little bit of a head there. That's okay. We got a couple more materials here to finish this guy off. So first one, we're going to create a nice collar with some guinea. This is hot pig. Excuse me there. Guinea makes nice collars on a lot of flies. So I'm just going to isolate the tip here. We're going to get a couple turns of this feather. Oh, I didn't grab hackle pliers. Yeah, whatever. We'll try it by hand to see what happens. Okay, just wrap back on it. See how we do here. Fat fingers. Again, bring your scissors along the edge just to help start that feather going back. Pull everything back. Literally 1 or 2 turns, that's really all you need. You don't need much here. I think I'm going to be good with 1 turn, 1 full turn. Just lock that in place. Trim away the stem. Again, I'm going to come in here, couple wraps back on it. Just like so. Come in here with my Velcro. Spread those fibers out a bit. This one here is a little bit more pronounced. You can kind of see that look that it gets. Next step, totally optional. I know not everybody can afford it. Jungle cock. We're going to throw some jungle cock eyes on here. There's a lot of good substitutes out there. I know the Pro Sport Fisher does a nice jungle cock that we're looking at possibly bringing in the near future. It's a synthetic, but we do have the real deal as well. But it costs a pretty penny. So I'm going to tie that in on a bit of an angle. And stems can be quite brittle, so I'm going to wrap forward. I'm going to wrap back on it, just like we did with the other hackles. Trim that away. You don't want those pulling out on you. I got 1 more for my side. You can make these as long or as short as you like. I like to put them on a bit of an angle. Alright, that one. Fold that back. Trim that away. Alright, as you can see, bit of a bulbous head on there of thread, which is totally fine because we're going to cover that all up now. So I'm just going to come in, unwrap a little bit here, some slippage there, a couple tight wraps. I'm going to make another dubbing loop. Seal that off. It's kind of a cool trick I saw on a different pattern. I think it was a Greg Senyo pattern. Could be mistaken. But he took the Kaufman SLF dubbing. This is the black stone. It's a really cool color. It's great for nymphs and stuff like that. We brought this in a couple different variations and different colors. It's a very short dubbing. It has little hints of blue and red and gold and all sorts of crazy colors in there. All I do is I preen the fibers apart, spread them out. I'm going to throw this in my dubbing loop. It's going to be kind of long. Right on, kind of like so. I'm going to add a little bit more. It's easier just to do it all at once if you can. Another chunk there. Perfect. That should be enough. Fingers crossed. Throw my spinner in the loop, pinch it off, give it a good spin, tuck away those fibers, make sure nothing gets trapped. Good second spin. I'm going to take my Velcro brush here, I'm just going to brush that all out. These fibers aren't very long, so they make a really nice head, like I said. They also make good stoneflies and other nymphs. All I'm going to do, pull them back, so all the fibers are facing towards the back of the fly. I'm just going to do touching turns all the way forward. This creates a nice finish on the fly. I've seen this technique done with seals for dubbing as well. They're a little bit longer, but if you cut them down, kind of custom blends or your own dubbings, looks kind of neat. Ooh. So a steep little ramp there, just kind of popped on itself. Let's see how that's looking. That's looking okay. Yeah, it's not bad. I'll just take a couple more turns here. We're pretty much ready to finish this pattern. So finish off that dubbing loop. A couple wraps in front. That Marabou being unruly as ever. Trim that off close. Kind of pull everything back here. Do a couple tight turns right in front of that dubbing. And I'm pretty much going to go straight into a whip finish here. So I'm just going to add some super glue to my thread. This helps to secure everything in place should anything go wrong. We do nice tight turns right at the front of that dubbing. We don't want too much of a thread head here. I've got kind of the elongated whip finisher here. Makes reaching over this extra tube a lot easier. 3/4 turn. That super glue is going to seat everything nice. Trim away our thread. One step I like to do here is just kind of tease out that dubbing in the front a little bit. Makes things nice and fluffy. Then I like to come in with a brush, be mean to it. This helps to set everything. Anything that's trapped gets brushed out. One final step here. Hopefully I can do this without... There we go. Pull that off the flexi needle. The thing with tubes, you got to finish them off. So I'm going to trim that about 2 millimeters or so away from the edge of my thread wraps. I'm just going to take a lighter here. I like to kind of have it started on the needle if I can. And you're just going to touch the front of it. It just kind of curls that tube back a bit. Jam it back on the needle to open up the hole so that you can feed your leader through there. Jungle cockeye is kind of trapped there. Yeah, we'll pull that out later. But there you have it. The Boss Hogg tube. Kind of a cool one. I'll be tying this at our Steelhead Jam coming up in a couple weeks here. So if you want to see it in person, come on by the shop and check it out. Thanks for tuning in.